to this week's edition of the Scots in Us podcast. I'm Camilla Hellman, and I'm delighted that you're joining us for Scotland 2022 Responsible Tourism. Scotland has been at the forefront of responsible tourism for many years, and there are many different ways that this can be looked at. And so we join three people to tell us a little bit about how their organisations are dealing with it. We begin by speaking with Armadale, Clan Donald Trust, who show us how they are dealing with the fact that there is a 600% increase of visitors to the Isle of Skye, to how this impacts them with campers trailing around and what they're doing to take care of this, from food to movement to the community at large. And then we look to Mary Meanders, a tour operator who is best known for her tours of Mary Queen of Scots and Outlander. And she tells us of how they are looking to give an experience that is socially responsible tourism. And finally, we join up with Joe Harrower, who leads on tours throughout Scotland, but most especially we talk to him about his walking tours of Edinburgh and the surrounding area. These weekly virtual tours have become an international success. And so now, join us.
Being here makes all the steps taken worth it, and the next steps even more important. I choose my path without impacting on our earth. The beat of a drum, the pulse of a club, the warmth of a fire, the taste of the sea. In a place you feel like you've escaped to, that still feels like home. A home protected for future generations, ready to explore. Scotland doesn't do things by small measures, unless it's whiskey. So we've charged our glasses, and our cars, and our bikes. If you're hungry for new experiences, thirsty for the unknown, and you want to go further, faster, slower, higher, deeper, louder, but still tread lightly upon our earth, then step forward. Scotland is calling.
Good morning, Anne, and thank you for joining us today. I believe from your headquarters of Mary Meanders in the Lithgow.
Hello, thank you for having me. And yes, we're here I'm here, it's evening here, and it's dark and it's wet and it's windy, a typical November day here in Scotland, yes, but we're so lucky. I'm here in Linlithgow, which is the birthplace of Mary Queen of Scots, which is where we are based, and it's also why we're called Mary's Meanders. We're called after our most famous resident, Mary Queen of Scots.
Well, we have been at the ASF working with Mary Meanders for many years, with Emma Chalmers coming across to see us in New York and joining us for the parade. But I think you also have been across as well, haven't you?
I have. I've been across a couple of times. One time, the first time was the year that Sam Hewn was the Grand Marshal, so it was all very Outlander themed, and Outlander's a large part of our business. So I was there with a large Outlander, quite a large contingent from Scotland actually that year. And the second time I was there, well, it probably would have been 2019. And I was there mainly that year with Visit Scotland, doing some talks on Mary Queen of Scots.
That's great.
So,
and
yeah.
so Mary Meanders really does have a specialty around Outlander and Mary Queen of Scots. Or maybe what we should say is that you get a lot of call for tours around that.
Yes.
So I wonder, with this growing awareness of the need for an approach to tourism that is environmentally focused, with the sustainability to the tourism, could you talk a little bit about how you at Mary Meanders are managing this huge influx of people, which I hope we're going to be returning to soon?
Yes, absolutely, yes, yep.
And the environmental approach you're taking to this.
Okay, so but Mary's Meanders, environmental approach and sustainability is nothing new. We've always run our business on these principles. I come from a background, I previously had a business that was an environmental business, to the extent that my Twitter name is actually Go Green Anne. I've kept the same Twitter name for years. So we've always looked at things from, if you like, a green perspective as much as we can, because we're firm believers in practicality, you know, as well as really doing what we can for the environment. But we do that, and we do simple things like, we're based in Linlithgow, which is 20 minutes on the train from Edinburgh. So for our group tours, we actually start them in Linlithgow, and we encourage people to catch the train from Edinburgh, which can be daunting for some people. And we actually have a lovely video we made years ago, which shows Mary Queen of Scots catching this newfangled horseless carriage to Linlithgow to show people how easy it is. So we do things like that. We have other simple things like, many tour guides will have as a selling point that they offer bottled water. We absolutely do not offer bottled water on our tours. We encourage people to bring their own. If they don't bring their own, we have refillable bottles that we give them. And there are more and more points. Even Linlithgow, the historic cross in Linlithgow now has a well where you can refill your bottle of water. So there's very, very simple things you can do that make little differences, and that's on a day-to-day basis. But so in 2019, the big word of the year then was over-tourism, with certain places. There's a corridor, Edinburgh, Inverness and the Isle of Skye, that everybody wanted to follow. And to a certain other extent, I mean, we do Outlander tours, certain Outlander locations like Doon Castle, we're really struggling, because these places, a lot of these, whether it be historic buildings or whether it be the single track roads and some of the areas of scenic beauty on Skye, are just not made for huge coach loads of people coming. Yes. So there was an issue, a practical issue as well as an environmental issue. Now, to a certain extent, obviously that all stopped suddenly, so people could regroup and have a think, and things have happened, like the fairy pools in Skye, where everybody wants to go, have built a car park, and there's a new toilet block at the Old Manor Store, but it's still not going to change things, and people need to think a bit about it, and some of these big coaches and things maybe need to replan routes, because while these places are all wonderful and people want to go to them, there are other equally nice places in Scotland. And I think we as tour guides, and just generally an education process, just need to highlight some of the other equally nice places in Scotland, just to spread the love a little bit, shall we say, to some other places. Because also, while it's wonderful for all the businesses, if there are too many people, sometimes levels of service start to fall and things like that. So it can be counterproductive in some ways. So if we can get things spread out a little bit, that will be a big help. And while we can make small changes to the infrastructure, we're not going to be building a new road network in the north of Scotland. That's just not going to happen. So
I think that the train service in Scotland is wonderful.
It is, between the cities, yeah.
And I think one thing that we need to also emphasize is, the map looks like we've got Edinburgh on one coast and Glasgow on the other. It's only less than an hour between them.
It is.
And that's a huge thing. And people don't realize that. When I've asked people about that here, they say, oh, 4 hours? You know, they have no idea. Yeah. So I think using the train more. And so one thing that is wonderful is also the bike paths that people can take now up the canals and around the place. Yes. So when you are looking at taking people on a tour around Outlander, you start them off at Linlithgow.
We do. We encourage them to come by train to Linlithgow, And then
you take them in smaller coach batches.
We do. We take people either private tours in a small, in a car, what you would call a compact vehicle. We think it's quite large, but there you go. Or a 16-seater minibus is as large as we will use. We you know, that's what we do. And we do things like we have an immersive, a week's tour, an Outlander tour, and for that we live in cottages that are out in the countryside, And, you know, it's all about the nature. And one year, our tour started late because nobody would leave till they checked that the little calf that had been born outside the window was okay. So we do things like that, and we encourage people to live like the local, because the simple things people can do, you know, sustainability is the big one. Is if you are traveling and you're going around a lot of these villages like the North Coast 500 or small towns and things like that, you can do simple things like take a rubbish bag with you, take your rubbish away. Even if people say bins are overflowing, unfortunately, there's probably not enough, but you can still do something about it. Take your stuff away with you. Make sure you use another huge thing you can do, because sustainability is not just about protecting the environment. We have to have economic sustainability as well. And that's a huge thing. Don't hire your camper van at the airport, fill it up at the nearest big supermarket, and off you go to enjoy the Highlands. Wait till you get there and shop in the local shops. There's amazing local shops now. I know sometimes there's a perception, if people have been to Scotland 20 years ago, that perhaps we don't have excellent produce and things in these out of the way places, but that has changed so much. And you've got amazing cafes, local produce. You even get little, this often surprises people. You'll pass somewhere and there'll be a farm and there'll be eggs and there'll be produce and there'll be baking and just a little honesty box for you to put your money in. So you can enjoy the local produce, shop locally, and get to meet the locals, because a big part of coming somewhere like here is getting to meet the local people and enjoying the local communities. And we do that on our tours. We sure we go to local places, and when we have our week's immersive tour, we take everybody to our favourite local fish and chip shop and things like that. But that's what you want to do. You want to, you'll enjoy Scotland more if you immerse yourself more in the local communities. And that perhaps means moving a little bit away from the major attractions. For example, everybody goes to Eilean Castle, okay? On the way to Skye. And Eilean Castle actually got a lovely, I have to say, new food bar at it. It's really, really nice. But if you're at Eilean Castle, you drive out, you turn left, you just go over the little bridge and you take a little turn, and there's the most lovely bakery with a really cute something out of Hogwarts little hut. And so that is just right there. And it's right beside a major tourist attraction. So take time and do a bit of research and just check these little things that are just slightly off the beaten track. And as I say, spread it around a little bit. And that will help everybody. It helps the load spread a bit, and also it helps the local community and the local environment.
With so many people, you know, coming to certain attractions, how are the major castles and abbeys, etc., coping with this? Because there is a wear and tear on them.
Yes.
Are they now asking people to stay further back? Are they allowing them as much access? How, as we look at this, how is that being handled? Okay.
So there's different things. It was a huge problem. It was becoming a huge problem for some attractions. If I mention Doon Castle, because it was one that said a particular amount. So Doon Castle had to do things. For example, they suddenly have to have a lot more car parking. So they just turned over a large piece of grass to park coaches on and things like that. Now, while they've been closed, while COVID's gone on, they've restored that to the grass. And the good thing is, in Scotland, once you remove the bus things or whatever, the grass comes back really quickly because of the rain. So things restored quickly, environmentally wise, the grass and things. But what they've done there is they've actually built new pathway that will head up in towards the village of Doon to try and encourage people to go there. And the staff there tell me that they're not going to have large coaches back in there because it was just causing too much problem. So that's the parking and the grounds around. And that's an issue everywhere, like the fairy pools, for example, in Skye. People were parking all over the verges and blocking the single track roads and things. So they've built a car park. But it really is, you know, things that need to be done, because those verges, it'll damage your car, but it's damaging the grass and the fauna and everything as well. And at the locations, that there was an issue with parking and the number of vehicles and things. So they've built new car parks, they've done things, or they are encouraging people to move away. Now, Castle, there's been a specific problem with a number of the historic Scotland castles, and whether it's down to the numbers of people, whether it's just down to the age of the buildings, whether it was down to them being closed for too long, you can't tell the exact reason. But unfortunately, in Melrose Abbey in the Borders, a piece of masonry fell, so they immediately closed all the buildings that were open, had open exposure. Castle was one, Linlithgow Palace unfortunately was another one. So those only opened for 2 weeks when we reopened again, and they've closed, and they're still closed because they're being inspected and they're being checked. Well, I don't think that's anything to do with the numbers, you know, specifically.
But these buildings do need a large amount of maintenance.
They absolutely do. Yeah, a huge amount.
We were closed and unable to go and look after these wonderful sites for 18 months.
That's right.
So we're going to have to understand that it's going to take a little time to bring them back. But the wonderful thing about Scotland is the people of Scotland, the government, everybody is thinking smart. They're really trying to take this on and address it. And it's really all of us embracing such simple ways, as you say, of picking up our garbage and taking it home with us in a bag, or, you know, just not thinking that we need to take huge vehicles along these country roads, but also take the train, enjoy the train.
The train's lovely. And,
you know.
Yeah, the train journey, of course, I mean, everybody and lots of people want to go on the Jacobite Express, you know, from Fort William to Malling. It's one of the most scenic train journeys in the world. But, you know, if you can't get on the Jacobite Express, the standard train goes on the same train track. You know, so you can get the standard train. You know, maybe not on a lovely steam train, but you'll still get the same views from it. And I think it's right. I think it is just thinking a little bit differently about how you do things. And I do know that often when people come, they're short of time, so they want to cram in as much time, see as much in as short a possible space of time. But the train system is very efficient between the big cities, up to Inverness, up to Aberdeen. Other than that, when you're getting further north than that, you do have to drive. But it's just consider it, and I have to tell you, and this is going to be the new watchword going forward, patience. Patience, because, you know, things are different. Things maybe won't move so fast. You maybe just have to be a little bit more patient. I know slow tourism is something that's talked about a lot, but I think generally speaking, we just have to be a little bit more patient and just have a greater understanding of our surroundings and our environment when we're in places.
So when you look at what you're doing, could you maybe spotlight one place in particular that you think has embraced this so well?
Yes, I absolutely can. And I'll just talk a little about the village of Falkland, which is in Fife. So Falkland in Fife is a perfect example of a village or a small town who are getting this right. So Falkland was actually Scotland's first conservation village, which means that it's protected. It's a very historic town, and it's protected in that you can't do anything. You can't change your windows or even paint your door or something like that without getting permission. And it's home to Falkland Palace, which was the holiday home, the vacation home, if you like, of the Stuart kings and queens. It's part ruin and part restored, so it's had a very sympathetic restoration. So perfect example of sustainability. It's managed by the National Trust for Scotland. It's been there for 500 years, and some of the built part of it is still there today and been beautifully restored as if it was in the time of James VI. So Mary Queen of Scots spent quite a bit of time there. Her father died there, actually, but the Stuart kings and queens would go. But unusually, Falkland Palace is right on the main street, so it dominates the village itself, but has the amazing gardens behind it, and they're beautiful historic gardens. And the Stuarts would go and they'd be hunting and they'd be hawking and they'd be walking in the gardens, and it even has the world's oldest tennis court in those gardens. So it's a perfect example of conservation, preservation and sustainability. The whole estate is managed by the Falkland Estates and the Centre for Stewardship. So that gives a clue as to how they're managing the estate. The palace itself has a Green Tourism Award. And that's something you can look for in accommodation if you're going to hotels and B&Bs and things. People can apply, and if they have a Green Tourism Award, they get different ones, bronze, silver and gold, and it shows that they're taking their green credentials seriously. So you can look out for that, but Falkland has that, and the estate runs courses and festivals and workshops and a cafe. Amazing, all the things that are there. But that's just one side of the town. The other side of the town, Outlander fans recognise it as the used Falkland as Inverness. That's where they filmed Inverness. Looks nothing like Inverness, but they filmed it there. So the town itself has lovely, lots of little local craft shops, cafes, delis selling local produce. So you can really enjoy local life and local produce there in Falkland as well. It's surrounded by the Lomond Hills. You can take a walk if you want up a hill, or just walk in the estate. And further down, just outside the town, it also has one of the first, it's been there since 1983. It's called the Pillars of Hercules, and it's organic vegetarian farm shop and cafe. And that's been there forever. So it's just kind of got everything. And I've made a note. I'd quite like to read out a statement. This is from the Falkland Estate as how to manage it, because I think it sums it up really, really well. So if you're okay with that, I'd quite like to read this out.
Please.
Yeah, it says, Falkland Estate is a place of great history, heritage, land and community. A place that nurtures what we do now to safeguard the future. A place where Stuart kings and queens of Scotland once came for rest and recreation. Now a place where visitors, staff and volunteers preserve this place and its legacy for the future. A place for you to visit, enjoy, respect and return. And I think that sums up sustainability beautifully.
And it really shows how all of us play such a role.
Yes.
I'm so glad that we've been able to talk to you today, Anne.
Oh, thank you.
We love working with Mary Meanders. You offer such a wonderful bespoke and also group tours. And we know that everybody loves them, and the Outlander fans and devotees
Yes.
really have discovered you and keep you very, very busy.
They do, hopefully again. But thank you so much, and thank you for all your support over the years too.
Well, we look forward to catching up with you soon on other matters. And,
yes.
It would be lovely to take one of the tours with you again. We did one around Mary Queen of Scots before.
Yes.
And so I hope this spring we can sort out doing another with you, because unfortunately not everyone can be in Scotland. And this is a wonderful way for us to enjoy it with you. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for having me. Thank you.
Thank you. Good morning, Alex. I'm so glad that you're able to join us this morning, I believe from the office at Armadale Castle.
That's right. It's a beautiful day here in Skye on the northwest coast of Scotland. I can't see the sun is shining, but it's a wonderful autumnal day and the leaves are now falling off the trees. So apart from the fact I'm in the office, it's a good place to be.
So you are the Chief Operating Officer of this very large undertaking, which is the Clandonald Estates. And the Clandonald Estates is very, very aware of the environment and responsible tourism. And so today, I wondered if you could tell us more about how you are dealing with the influx of huge amounts of visitors to the island and the experience they can have in a responsible way when they visit you in Skye.
So Skye is on the destination map and has been for a number of years. And I suppose people refer to that as a visitor bucket list, where there's a number of very well-known sites in Skye that visitors want to come and see. And one of the challenges that we've faced in the last few years, even before COVID, has been the fact that many of them are coming in a very few months, weeks of the year. And as the footfall is at a point now where it genuinely is not sustainable. And that's something that we need to be really mindful of in Skye and the wider Scottish context, is that we have a finite land resource, we have a finite road system, and there's only so many people that we can actually physically accommodate at any one time. So the way forward that we've been working on as a wider community is how on earth we manage those visitor numbers to ensure that the visitors have the quality of the experience that they're looking to have. Is very important. And yet the Skye infrastructure and the Skye environment is not disenfranchised or affected in a deleterious way. So that's something we're currently working on. In the context of Armadale here, so we have a 20,000 acre estate in Scotland as part of a landowning charitable trust, a charity here in Scotland. We're not for profit body. We are driven by doing the right thing as part of internal circular economy. And we're also driven by our environmental and heritage considerations. The heritage element is covered by the museum, the Clandonald history, and that good Scottish element that we can cover again for many hours. But the environmental credentials is something that we're very keen to explore and take forward. Part of the drive for us in terms of visitor numbers is to communicate better with visitors why they are important to us, why their investment into our environment here is so critical, and where the money is going in a more transparent way. So something that we're working on in the background just now. But we're very keen also to open up this estate to a more natural, capital-focused approach to management. And essentially that's about the viewpoint that the natural environment provides a number of public goods to the wider population, both the local people and the wider human population, even around the world. That goes to carbon sequestration, it goes to the marine environment, protected areas, it goes into the woodlands, the native woods that we have here, and also the human impact on that in terms of the fact that, albeit we have a very wild landscape, all of it at some point has been managed by human hands. So that's what we're looking to do, is to pull together a more coordinated management regime with a strong strategic plan for the future that's tied into sustainable tourism, but also strong environmental credentials-based focus as well.
And within the sustainable tourism element, people can experience the island, whether it be on a bicycle or taking a trail or all these different things that you are encouraging them now to do.
That's true. And it's very important to us that the actual transport infrastructure becomes as sustainable as possible, because right now, local people and most of the tourists are just driving around the island, emitting vast amounts of petrol and diesel fumes into our spacious environment that is limited. We are very keen to take forward sustainability in a number of levels, both in terms of the infrastructure, which is not necessarily a matter just for the estate here, but the wider community and Scottish Government. We're very keen to ensure that the accommodation offering here is sustainable, and also that the food and beverage as well. Let me just cover the food and beverage element, because that's really exciting. We're very keen to open up more local food offerings for visitors, so that when they come here to Armadale Castle, which is part of the Clandonald estate, the homeland of Clandonald, they'll not just get an authentic Highland experience where you go to visit Scotland's foremost clan, the MacDonald clan, and all its many septs around the world. You're actually coming from an authentic local experience as well. You meet local people, understand how they work, understand how they live here, what they do, get to meet them, and experience a local diet that is far removed from the usual advertisements of deep-fried Mars bars, which is nonsense. The Scottish diet is actually more predominantly things like lobsters and langoustines, and that's something that we want to be getting our visitors to enjoy, is being able to sit down in a wonderful environment, looking out over the sea, eating really good seafood or venison from the hill, or some very, very good vegetarian options, locally grown, locally sourced, looking at that environment where it came from, meeting the people that harvested that meat or those plants, and having a wonderful cultural experience, good music, what we refer to in the Highlands as good crack. And a good crack is basically a really good time together, a good party.
So you're fostering the interaction with the community so they feel a part of everything going on. You're trying to expand on that.
Very much. There's, in the last couple of years, there has been a fractious situation between visitors and local people. Local people trying to go about their daily lives, going to go shopping in the local town of Pethery, and yet a journey that might take 35 minutes might take an hour and a half because of the sheer volume of visitor traffic on the roads. So that's something that we have to more effectively manage. Again, not really something that the estate can do by itself, but we want to be part of a wider programme to ensure that visitor numbers can be spread through the whole year, that the visitors can be made quite clear as to what our expectations in terms of sustainable visitor footfall are, what they should be doing or not doing, like litter dropping and that kind of thing on the countryside, which many of them do, lighting fires accidentally. And also really getting the message across to them, as you said, is that we want you to be part of our family. So you've got this Highland mentality where my home is your home. It's a genuine welcome. And we want that to be extended from a local perspective to our visitors, that when they come here, they get authentic handshake out. You're very welcome. Come and sit down, have a dram, have a whiskey, have some good food. And if you behave yourselves and see the night through, you might have some very good times, some good music as well.
So how have your visitor numbers increased? We always hear how it has been sort of overtaking Skye, but could you put that in context a bit for us?
Just in the sheer volume of caravans, so it's basically the camper vans, the mobile trucks that you find with accommodation built into them. That has increased by, I believe the number is 600%. Now, I have no stats to back that up, but I've been speaking to a contact to Visit Scotland, and they believe it's a 600% increase. There's also more demand for that, because if you speak to second-hand camper van salespeople and new vendors of camper vans, they say that the market is already, the demand is still very strong. So there's already over the demand for new vehicles. So actually, it's something that we have to plan for in the years ahead. So if we think we have lots of camper vans coming to the Highlands and Skye now, that number is only going to increase as more of them are produced and end up on the roads and become more affordable as second home, as rather than second vehicle purchases. So that's something that we have to think forward. So in that case, rather than taking the decision that, well, your camper vans come here, they don't spend much money, they come here with their food, they come here with all of their peripherals, they come here with accommodation, they drive around, park up, leave rubbish behind, sometimes effluent, human effluent, and then they leave. So what can we do if the inevitable way forward is that they would more camper vans? What can we do in a sustainable way, but making their experience here worthwhile for them too? What can we do to ensure that their experience is sustainable and that we can look on that and go, yes, but we in the environment are benefiting as well? And that's a question that we're asking ourselves right now. So a plan forward for us here at Armadale is to provide more services for them, but at the same time, rather than just providing them with overnight services like hello and goodbye the next day, trying in their time here, the couple of nights to spend with us, to actually be part of that community, to spend money in the bars and restaurants, to enjoy not just the physicality of the environment, which is stunning, but to actually enjoy the human and cultural element as well. And because here in Slate, in Skye, the southern part of Skye, we have this ancient Highland heritage that no other corner of the world has. We are the authentic. If anybody wants to pinpoint what is the root of Scottish Highland culture, well, you find it here in this immediate environment here, and that's something that we really want to get across to our visitors in the many years.
So they can park the camper and then take the alternative ways of connecting to the environment and experiencing it in a more real way as well. And
yes,
that will definitely help. But another challenge that, is that such a volume of visitors is very difficult on historic sites because they are fragile. Are you also having to deal with that? You must be.
Yes, we do. So we have a number of old castles on the estate here, which are exciting ruins, what we refer to as romantic ruins, and they genuinely are. But when you have that volume of people visiting them, and there's not the infrastructure to accommodate them, pathways, toilets, that kind of thing, it becomes immensely challenging. And then you end up with things like Facebook sites dominated by rubbish left behind by visitors. Look what they've done today. It's dreadful. Another fire's been started. That kind of thing. I think some of that problem comes down to interpretation. So if we were able to competently communicate to visitors at the point of arrival what our expectations of them are and what they will get in return. Like, if you are good to this environment and local people, we will be good to you in return, and you'll have a better experience. You'll be able to invest more in this environment, provide more infrastructure. So the next time you come, it will be so much better. We have to wake up to the fact that Scotland is a unique ecosystem, and it's a unique human cultural system in terms of our heritage. We are incredibly fortunate to have that human heritage that we have, and also that human heritage as part of an exciting, vibrant, stunning natural environment. And yet we have responsibility collectively, both local people and visitors alike, domestic visitors from the UK and international visitors from abroad, to the best we can to ensure that we act as custodians and we pass this environment down to many generations ahead, not just in the same condition, hopefully not in worse condition, but hopefully in better condition. And that's our driver here at Armadale.
You've got so many projects ahead of you, which I know we can't touch on all of them today, but I hope in these months to come, we can visit again and talk around to you about Clandonald and your plans to bring the Clandonald community even more together globally, and also the wonderful challenges and you are taking on around the environment at Armadale and with the trust. So thank you for joining us today and opening the doors to Armadale and the Clandonald Estate. And we look forward to speaking with you very shortly on more matters.
Thank you so much, Camilla. It's been an absolute pleasure. And I wish you and your watchers, your audience, the very, very best. And it's great to have the ASF involved. And just as one last soundbite, thank you to the ASF for being one of the original supporters of the Clandonald Estate back in 1971 when the charity started. So you were there with us then, and we are here with you now.
And we're very, very honoured and proud for that very long connection. Thank you.
Okay.
Good evening, Joe, and thank you for making time at the end of your day to join us from Edinburgh today.
It's great. Hi, Camilla. It's good afternoon to you back in New York as well. I hope things are good for you in New York.
Well, it's not too bad. It's been so long since we've had the pleasure of having you with us in New York for Tartan Week. You are always over here, and it's been several years now that we've been able to work with you. But of course, with the pandemic, things changed and you pivoted from organizing tours around, taking groups around as blue badge tour guides that you are, which please explain that to us in a moment, but these wonderful virtual walking tours. And as we now look at sustainability and being kinder to our planet, I thought it would be great if you could talk to us a little bit more about the walking tours, not only virtual, but in person, and how you feel things are going at this point.
Yeah, it'd be great. And it's great to be here. And my accommodation is booked for New York for next year. So I am coming.
Good. Lovely.
And I'm bringing people with me again. So I'm not coming alone. I'm bringing I try to bring a little group all the time. So I've already mustered a few people. And I've got a couple who want to talk to you directly about playing in Bryant Park as well.
Yeah. We need to have a conversation on that.
Yeah,
no, they're
definitely interested. Yeah.
Good. So
anyway,
let's tackle how we are going to be kinder and gentler to Scotland and to preserving the wonderful place that it is by being aware of our surroundings and the environmental impact all these throngs of people have. So can you take it from there?
Yeah, I just want to take you a little bit further back. So we're looking at the beginning of the pandemic, and the pandemic really hit here I would say in Scotland around about March of 2019. That's when things started to close down. In fact, the last tour that I had was the Chattanooga Ski Club. They had been skiing in northern Italy, which was a hotspot for the virus. And then they were spending a week in Scotland. And we started off, we were supposed to be here for a week. We did about 3 days. We ended up going from Edinburgh up north to Glasgow to get them on a plane because they started to panic a little bit because the country literally was closing down ahead of us. So hotels were closing. So that's where it all came from. My guide, or my partner guide, Mike Turpey, and I got together and we thought, well, the city was empty.
Yes.
We had nothing in our books. We had nothing to do. We were literally twiddling our thumbs. We like what we do. We always have the strapline, guiding is fun. We were having no fun. So Mike is a musician who is my co-guide. Is Joe and Mike's virtual tours, or Joe and Mike's award-winning virtual tours. I'll go into that as well. So he approached me. He had this idea of saying, well, why don't we do virtual tours? No one else is doing it. Now, he comes from a creative background. He's an artist and he's a musician. And I come from more of the critical thinking, scientific background. So we gel really well. So we started to think about it. We thought we've got to be enterprising. We started to use our initiative. And we just started literally with an iPhone, nothing more. And then we just chanced it. And we just got out on the streets of Edinburgh, which were completely empty, being patrolled by police, by the way, who did stop us on occasion and ask us what we were doing. But you were allowed to go out if you were working. So we quoted it. This is our work. We're tour guides. We had nobody. We didn't know who was going to tune in with us. Yes. And it grew exponentially. I mean, our walking tours just became a regular. We were there every Monday at 3 o'clock UK time, 10 o'clock Eastern time in the US. And people just started to click into us from around the world. And I'm talking Australia and New Zealand, right through to California. So we have this, sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say, I think what you were doing and what we were doing at the ASF by starting to do these podcasts and Zooms helped our community so much to feel connected.
In so many ways. Yeah, and that's one initiative. Apart from bringing Scotland to the world, the feedback we were getting, because they are live, our tours are live, so people interact and have this image of people in New Zealand and Australia wrapping up, ready for their bedtime, watching it, and then the people in California are getting up with their coffee and croissant, and it spans right across. So we hit the timing right. But the feedback we were getting, not only the pleasure that we're getting from seeing us outside and doing the walking tours and our interaction and the banter, and people have got different connections to Scotland. People have no connections to Scotland. But one of the big feedbacks that we did get was the health and well-being aspect of it, the mental health.
Yes.
Because people were feeling really trapped, and we didn't even think about that. That was an unintended consequence of what we're doing. That people felt that we were out walking and doing it and showing them in all weathers, in blizzards, in virtual hurricanes. And these people that were coming on to say, oh, we so look forward to it, and I bring my friends in who are little connections and we all tune in, or I bring my family in who they're all dotted across the US and we all get together and we watch. And then maybe one person has been to Scotland. We were getting offered as gifts to people. So people were sending a little happy birthday with a link to our tour. And they were sending that saying, we'll see you at X whatever time o'clock from Arizona or New Mexico up to Maine. And there were families all coming together and doing it. And it just grew that way. And it's been a great experience, a learning experience, a humbling experience, and great fun.
But you also have been taking us into wonderful corners and stories of Edinburgh. And I think as we look at responsible tourism and really begin to realize that we don't need to drive everywhere,
absolutely,
taking a walking tour with you can give people such a wonderful insight into real the Edinburgh, to the background and the history of it.
Yeah, our tours, whether you're doing a virtual tour with us or whether you come on a walking tour with us, I mean, if you take, for example, the old town of Edinburgh, just take the Royal Mile. Okay, it's just over a mile. You could probably walk from the castle to the palace in about 30 minutes.
Right.
I would take you about on a tour for anywhere between 2.5 to 3 hours. But I will not only take you on a distance, I will take you on a time travel. I will take you through the depth of history. We bring it alive. We talk about the characters that are in there. Some people want to come and make a literary connection with Edinburgh. Some people want to make an historic connection. Some people want to make it about the Enlightenment. Some people want simple Harry Potter. They just want a Harry Potter walk, you know. So, or Outlander is another one you mentioned. So people have different things that they want from it. So you have to listen to what people want. Now, when we create our virtual tours, we can do a little walk. They only last 1 hour, but we'll only take maybe a few hundred yards, few hundred meters, but we will take you back 400, 500, maybe even when you're talking about real history, we'll take you back to prehistory in some places that we go to as well. So it's not just a walk in terms of, oh, here's a building, here's a building. It's bringing the characters alive. And this is what we do. This is our job. This is what a Blue Badge Guide does. It's not just two-dimensional tour. It's taking you into the time dimension as well. So we're looking at depth and quality and interaction, because our tours are live. Things happen on live tours. Some good things, some bad things, but they are live. And you can't script it in many regards, what's going to happen. But genuinely, we have fun doing it. And because we have fun, our viewers have fun too. And we've got such a group of loyal viewers now that they're sticking with us. We've been doing it for, what, nearly 2 years now coming up.
I know. So you're going to keep going, because we're going to keep going with our podcast. We feel that we're able to share the stories and the connections globally like you are, and offering people who will maybe unable to get to Scotland or to know of things that are happening, to be a part of it. So you will and this is a great way of being sustainable and helping everything. So you will keep doing the pods and doing the walking tours. And then you will also open up into taking people on physical tours again in the coming months.
Scotland is really opening up this next year. I mean, the number of inquiries, not just me, but a lot of our guide colleagues are getting at the moment. People are desperate to travel. They're desperate. And I think partly what we've been doing is that we've been aware that Scotland itself is going to have to compete for the tourism dollar next year. I mean, so what we do, and we see as being a part of a whole marketing, we're doing it individually for us, but we're also selling the concept of Edinburgh, Glasgow, wherever we go. And we're kind of saying, you know, Scotland is open for business next year. Come and visit us. And then when Scotland opened up just recently, we had a few of our friends who watch us, who we've never met before, coming over almost immediately to Scotland because on the basis of what we've been doing over these past 2 years.
And so how are you dealing? When I was talking with the Armadale in Skye, they were explaining that tourism has increased by probably up to 600%, which has a huge impact on these wonderful sites. Yeah. How are you dealing with that? And how are you seeing special places that you go to? You mentioned going up to Orkney and the islands and everything. How is that being handled?
Well, personally, I work with companies that do small groups. I tend not to go with the bigger groups, so it's much easier to control the sustainability aspect of it. Also, when you're traveling in smaller groups, and these could be individual, where we do driver guiding, or just smaller minibus tours around, or it could be family groups, things like this. It's much easier to get the sustainable, because you can go off the beaten track a bit more. And you can see things that the big coach tours that come up, they can zip up one road and zip down the other. And don't get me wrong, they're very good for people to get a taste of Scotland. But even the bigger companies, I think, are looking at the sustainability aspect of it. And I knew at the end of the last but before we went and closed down, I'd seen some companies change a lot in terms of not packing bums on seats, as it were, but actually going for a much more quality experience for the guest who's coming over. There are some companies who, and I think they're mainly non-Scottish companies who come up to Scotland that maybe we need to have a word with, because they do pack them in, you know, and they do pack them out again. But certainly the companies that I've worked with, and coach companies and the drivers that we work with, we're all aware that we have a valuable resource and we don't want to lose it. I mean, this is our bread and butter to a great extent, and we want to maintain it. Not for us. We're custodians of what we've got. We have to look after the future. And I think in Scotland, and also with the COP26, even before that, I think we've a lot of the guides and a lot of the tourism industry, and I will give Visit Scotland a big shout out on this, because they've been great in guiding the industry in sustainability and the tenets of sustainability of, you know, leave nothing behind but your footprint, eating local, merchandise local, support the local economies, protect the landscape, just simple things that you can do. And simple enough, as I mentioned before, get rid of the plastic bottles.
Now, before you and I spoke today, you started our conversation, you showed me a wonderful bottle you've been using, which was a great example of the fact that we could all be doing this. Because this says 2008. And so explain the story to that, because I'm inspired by that.
Well, this was when I used to work in some people even may recognize, anybody who lives in Connecticut may remember that company. I used to work for this company called Gartner. It's an IT company based in Connecticut. And as being one of their award winners, I won an award, we got a trip to Barcelona. And even back in 2008, this company had really kicked into this idea of sustainability. So one of the gifts that we got when we arrived was a metal bottle. It's metal. And it said, don't buy plastic. And I've not, ever since then. This goes everywhere I go. It's bashed, it's bruised, it's seen a couple of miles. It's kind of like me. Camilla is bashed and bruised, but you know, I've got a few miles under its feet as well. But I now recommend to some of the agencies that I work with that if you want to give a person a welcome gift when they arrive, buy them a metal bottle, because Scottish Water has fountains in all of the bigger towns, and you can refill these in your hotel, in your Airbnb from the tap. Scottish Water is pure, it's clean, it's great, and you don't have to waste money on buying water because it's all free.
Exactly. And you're also helping the environment. And I think that's the thing, is that we now had a real mind reset. And all these things are coming together. And the whole idea of sustainable tourism is about how we treat and show our love for Scotland and everywhere that's there. So as we look forward to talking to you and taking a tour with you in the coming months, but have you anything you'd like to share as a closing thought around all this? Yeah,
I mean, as I say, if people want to join us live, we are live every Monday. Yes. Can I make a plug?
Of course, because you're here, because we appreciate everything you're doing. And I joined you a few weeks ago when you were down on the beach. Suddenly Howie was there and everybody was there, and it was, I did not realize how close the beach was and how we could be taking a bicycle and taking ourselves off there.
And we do that. Mike and I do that. We take people down, and Mike actually performs down there. Mike plays the bagpipes, by the way, and his son plays the drums, and his wife plays the accordion. So we've got a whole band there. But we are live every Monday at 3 o'clock UK time, so it's 10 a.m. Eastern time, and you can catch us on Facebook. Now you have to go into Piping Scott Tours for our live tours. Right. Okay, and anybody can join. It's free of charge. We don't charge for it. That's the other thing. You know, you don't have to put a penny in your pocket. Just take a break, put your feet up, get your coffee on, and come and join us. We also have a huge back catalogue that we uplift or upload into YouTube. And our whole back catalogue is there, free of charge. Okay?
Yes.
But one of them, there's two I want to pull out for you here because they are gems. One is the visit to Inner Pethery Library.
Right.
If you've never heard of Inner Pethery Library, go into it. It has some of our national treasures in there, which I got weak at the knees. We were actually allowed to touch them and see them. And it's if you're into books and literary history of Scotland, first editions of Robert Louis Stevenson, back to the Kilmarnock editions, first editions of Walter Scott. We've got, the library had inherited, it was a woman in New England had bequeathed this whole history, this whole huge history of first editions. That was her hobby, collecting Scottish first editions. And she bequeathed them all to Inner Pethery Library. So that's the first one I would recommend. It is a gem. People are approaching us now, Camilla, and want to collaborate with Mike and I on what we're doing. And that was one of the collaborations that we did. We've got one coming up on the 29th of November, and it's another library, and it's another hidden gem, and it's Bishop Leighton's library. You may not have heard of Bishop Leighton, great man of the 17th century, and he bequeathed his whole library to the town of Dunblane. And again,
I love Dunblane, yes.
And again, they've got national treasures there that they're bringing out for Mike and I. And we're going to have first editions of Adam Smith and the Wealth of Nations. So that's only one of them. There's a whole host of other gems they're going to bring out. So that's in the future. That's in 2 weeks' time. But we talked about sustainable shopping in Scotland and helping support. We did a wonderful tour in a shop, and it's called the Scottish Textile Showcase, and it's up on YouTube. If anybody wants to do sustainable, we were in the shop. The shop works as a showcase for all these artists and artisans and creatives from all over Scotland, weavers, tapestry makers, knitters, everything. So while we were doing the live broadcast, we had the creatives live from Lewis, Harris, Orkney, Highlands. They were live while our audience was live. So they were all talking to each other. And I'm going to give you two words that belong together that I discovered in the English language. Cashmere duvet. How does that sound?
Ooh, warm and comfy. Wonderful.
Why has nobody put those two words together, cashmere duvet? And they sell, this woman is making cashmere duvets, and we had her live where she was up in the Highlands. Okay.
Yeah, you have to send us details of that because we need to do something on that because we get cold over here.
Oh, I'll tell you what, Camilla, now you've got my Christmas list. You know what I want in my stocking.
Well, you know, next year is the year of Scotland's year of the stories of the word. So I think we need to noodle on doing a special pod and going along with you to Bishop Leighton and to Inverary libraries.
Inner Pethery. Inner Pethery. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
All right, Inner Pethery's libraries and learning about them. We've done things with Abbotsford, we've done things with the National Library of Scotland, but to hear about these other regional libraries that have hidden gems would be lovely. So
yeah.
let's plan to do that.
We will. I will do. What a lad. Inner Pethery is the oldest lending library in Scotland.
Right.
The oldest lending library, and they even have books of the people who the register of people who actually took the books out in the 1700s.
Oh.
And I'm not taking up too much time here, but there was a visitor from the US whose family came from Crieff. So Inner Pethery is near Crieff. His family came from Crieff. Yes. And he had traced back his ancestors to this little town of Crieff. He had heard of the Inner Pethery Library being the oldest lending library. He went there and he saw that in the register, his ancestor had taken a book, had registered a book, and they were able to find the book.
Oh!
So he was holding a book that his ancestor had held and had taken out of this oldest lending library in Inner Pethery. And library we're going to on the 29th is, I believe they call it the oldest private library. So there are books in there that are going to go back to the 14th and 15th century, and we're getting to see them. They're bringing out these treasures for us. So we're doing something right, Camilla. People are collaborating with us, and we're bringing it to our viewers, and all of it is free of charge.
And so, Joe, you know that I believe very much in collaboration, and all these things come together and happen to through that. Thank you so much.
Okay, and we'll see you. If I don't speak to you before, we'll definitely see you in April in New York City.
Lovely. Thank you, Joe. Bye.
Hopefully we'll speak before. Two words I'm going to leave you with. Cashmere duvet.
Oh, I don't know. That's it. Thank you, Joe. Take care. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.